Let's jump right into the subject. The subject is about portfolio management. And portfolio management, as we hear it, as I heard it in the last years as a consultant delivering portfolio management approaches, methodology, and tool, my background and Ricardo's background, our background was the classical, what we call classical portfolio management. It's the idea that you can always do new projects, you get new opportunities. There are legal projects you must definitely tackle, otherwise you're going to get fined. You get your current projects that go across several years. You get the program projects, the one that we decided so many years ago that we would do. We got other projects that are coming from our clients or from our own people or that are imposed on us. And basically every year, portfolio management companies, they just put this into a big funnel. And from this, they're counting, okay, if I do everything, all of these, how much it's going to cost me for next year, and what resources do I need? And can I do it? Which means that somehow we cannot say yes to everything all the time, otherwise there wouldn't be a portfolio management discipline, which means that we're gonna have to rank those candidate projects existing, etc., find them a score to be able to rank them and make a selection, because the budgets are not extensible forever, and our resource pool we can recruit, but basically is a fixed available number of hours per competency per year. So that's the classical basic you teach at school portfolio management. You get your candidates, they're all going to use money, they're all going to use resources workload, and I need to make a selection. And to make that selection, I'm going to rank those candidates according to criterias, and those criterias are usually the model of the strategy of the organization in 5-10 years. We do projects to support organizational change, whether it's creating new products or internally improving IT department or whatever, but they can be ranked. And that's the basis of portfolio management in a waterfall approach, is that you can predict what's the value of your candidates and project are going to deliver with respect to those criteria. In Waterfall, classical project management, when we do a project and we do our project charter, we're able to explain our stakeholders that in so many months, we're going to deliver that product with this feature, and they're going to increase the quality by so many percent, and they're going to have features for the ROI at so many percent, and et cetera, because it's a predictive model. And that's the key point of the presentation. I'm doing the introduction right now, but one of the cornerstone of this presentation is Waterfall is a predictable but stone cast model. It's hard to change in the middle of the project. Agility is a discovery model. You don't fix much at the beginning. And by iteration, you discover, you learn, and you refine, and you'll find your landing zone after so many iterations. But as much it is easy to make a promise in Waterfall about features that you're going to deliver, and it is very hard to have the project change in the middle, as much it is the contrary in the Agile world, that is, you can discover, but you don't make any much promise at the beginning, but you know your product's going to get better and better in development, better and better, because you keep on working and you're allowing change. That's what we call a discovery model. But then you cannot predict at the beginning exactly what you're going to get. All right, so let's move a little bit. This is just the introduction to the classical waterfall management. This is the SAFE framework. Now, what is SAFE? SAFE, Scalable Agile Framework. SAFE tends to bring a picture that, even though nowadays most focus and agility is done by the development team, the equivalent of the contributing team in a regular project, you also have 3 layers in agility organization. Just like you have the tasks and activities that are regrouped by projects, that are organized by programs, that have been decided at one point in time in the portfolio management in discipline. Here at the bottom part, you got your teams, and they're delivering, and you got all processes and ways to deliver and etc. That is not none of our concern at the moment because it's not at the portfolio level. And those teams are organized around programs. That's the middle block. Programs are using backlogs to depict how you're going to organize work through the teams and through features and enablers and etc. But it's still not the level of interest. What was problematic to Ricardo and I when we got first presented the SAFe model? We are, 20 years old, experienced consultants, so we know what we're looking for. And what they explain there is that you get strategic themes at the enterprise level that lead to what they call a portfolio canvas. And with the backlog of existing projects that you inject, you calculate your budget with guardrails to make sure you're going to sponsor and fund crazy things and lead to epics and enablers. That part was explained to us like, okay, you get strategic team, they organize in portfolio canvas, and then that creates your lean budget, and then you make the decision. And we're like, okay, stop. We're not buying it. Like in waterfall mode, when you do that, you got a way to organize things. You got a process. You're just saying, you don't just say, oh, I'm gonna assess the strategic and then make a decision. We got a sequence with algorithm. We can calculate, put weight, simulation, etc. There must be something similar in the agile world. And the person that were introducing us to this concept was also not a certified SAFe consultant. He was one of our peers who just discovered this on a client site and wanted to make an introduction to us. But we need to understand, how do you make your decision? Because it's not described here, it's SAFe, knowing, let's get back one slide earlier, that predictability is going to be a problem. I got my strategic themes. I could sponsor 5 agile initiative out of 30 I'm presented. Which one shall I select? Well, base yourself on your predictability model. If it's going to give more ROI than another, well, I can't, because I don't have a predictability model to start with. It's a discovery model. So I can't be sure about what the feature, even it could happen that after 6 iteration, you're going to stop the thing because unfeasible, because market change quickly, because customer and client or product owners feature are unreachable. So it's hard to make a bet, because at the end of the day, what we're doing here at this level of strategic funding is a bet. We're betting that if we put our money in place A, it's going to give us back more strategically than in place B. So we are like, okay, not satisfied. There's something that seems to exist. We think there will be a problem because agility is a discovery and not a predictive model. How does SAFe answer that? So first of all, being consultants, what do we see on the field? We see on the field that most of the agile vectors and strength nowadays is at the delivery model. The teams that are organizing themselves with their product owner and scrum master as agilists to deliver things in an agile way. But when you look at the top of the organization, most of the finance people, they don't think agile. They think ROI, it's a bet, I'm making an investment, I want my return, and I'm going to make a decision that way. So first of all, we see a discrepancy between the lower level, and if you want to get back to this picture, where definitely organizations are turning themselves into agile mode at the delivery team level. Some of them at the program, rarely at the top level where the CEO and the chief financial officer are going to think agile to sponsor and fund their company change. So the first thing, there's a discrepancy there. The second is most of companies nowadays don't deal with just projects in agile, and that's the little survey earlier, or projects only in waterfall. We have both. Some development, R&D, and IT projects are in agile mode, but the good old classical construction projects are in waterfall mode in the same company. I'm gonna spend my money knowing that am I gonna make a classical portfolio on the left hand, an agile portfolio on the right hand, and spend my budget into two? And how do I reconciliate both so that I get a single vision, whether the item is agile or waterfall, to cope with my organizational and funding problem? So that's the other thing we found in companies. And as much as the first point was right, I've never seen the reverse. I've never seen delivery teams that were working hardcore waterfall when you have top management thinking agile. Usually it's the other way around, because top management takes longer time to get convinced by new novelties and new techniques and etc. And again, 100% pure agile companies across all levels are rare. Usually you find them in small companies, startups, because it's easy to get organized that way. Think about Renault, Airbus, or a major company. You can't be 100% agile everywhere. It will be someday, maybe or not, but today it is not the case. So let's go back to SAFe. What does SAFe say about how do you rank your candidate projects in an agile portfolio so you can make a decision on which one you're going to fund? So we just took the SAFe literature. Maybe that thing is a blocker here at the bottom. It's just the SAFe official website that says we are a portfolio management competency. I'm not going to read everything. I just highlighted. Oh, sorry, something moved. Align strategy and execution. Okay, fair enough. That's what we do too. And that's what we want to do. We want to align the strategy of the company and the project delivery, the execution. So far, very aligned. They remind us that traditional approach is different from lean approach. Okay, fair enough. Portfolio level. At the portfolio level, we're gonna work around the flow of value through value streams. Okay, that's how SAFe presents it. And we're gonna focus on building the right things with the appropriate level of investment. So far, we're very aligned with the old world, that is the classical waterfall world. We're trying to build the right thing with the right budget. I highlighted in yellow. It does not save that highlight. I did the highlighting. What do they say about strategy and investment? That becomes interesting. They say they only by allocating the right investment to build the right thing. That's exactly the same. So far there's no difference. And this is where it hurts. How do they decide? Well, business owner, executive, portfolio stakeholders, technologies, enterprise, everybody discuss, debate, and agree. Okay, with a beer in the bar, or is there a methodology to reach that? Can we make notes on item? Can we rank them, put weight? Can we make simulate? No. Basically, we discuss, debate, and whoever shouts louder wins. I mean, it is not happening that way, of course. I'm not stupid, but on the other hand, SAFe doesn't seem to give us a way to do it. We do have a way in Waterfall, classical word about criterias and libraries of criterias, and then assigning ranking on the criterias one to the other, and then assigning scores on each project. They don't have that there, obviously, and that's a problem to us. When we went to see agilists, specialists in France, people who are very knowledgeable about agile, and we asked them, are we stupid? Is this something we don't understand? Are we going to make a fool of ourselves at the PMI conference when we were going to present this? Because we did. And they say, no, you put your finger somewhere it hurt. We're not convinced how to do the prioritization in an agile mode. So let's carry on a little bit. What does SAFe says also? They say that in an agile portfolio, we're going to use metrics to rank things. Oh, right, good. Oh, that's what we're looking for. And for instance, productivity. To rank the performance of your productivity of if a project is going to gain productivity, you just need to measure the feature cycle time. If you decrease it, you're doing good. But by how much? I would rather invest on something that decreases my cycle time by a factor of 3 than a factor of 2. But I need then to predict the project we're going to put together to downsize the cycle time is going to give a factor of 3. That is predictive. That is not discovery. Discovery would be, I'm going to work on productivity and launch projects so that I decrease it. By how much? Oh, I can't tell you. We'll see along the way, but I promise you I'm going to decrease it. But it's too early to tell you. Or I can put a range from 5 to 10, but I need a precise number. No. A discovery model doesn't allow you that. So what SAFe is strangely saying is to be able to measure the benefits of the metric, of the metric or the criteria, we're going to use finite and predictable scores. And that's something we still are very uncomfortable with. Voila. Just for a reminder, this is how we usually work in waterfall mode, the full disciplines. You want to capture benefits, you launch project, program, or enhancement. They are themselves prepared and agreed at the portfolio management level, which itself is fed by the demand, which itself is fed by ideas. So you can look at the chronological way. We get ideas in the company. We need to transform them into demands so that they can feed the portfolio, that can decide what project we're going to launch, execute those projects, and capture the benefits. That's the classical picture. If I bring it back to a comparison between the two models, from the ideas, we get demands. We do preliminary studies by paying so many days of work, and we reach the state of qualified demands, where we know then for each ideas in the classical waterfall world, what's my value, what's my ROI I'm going to gain for each of them, what's the market penetration for each of them, because that's the preliminary study is going to give you that. Risk analysis, deliverable, plan, cost, basically the project charter. And from that project charter, I've got enough predictable metrics that I can confront my new demand, my existing projects, make my cost versus value selection, human cost and euro cost, and finally have my project launch. If I do that in an agile world, what we call project demand is called development demands. That's going to bring feature requests. And those feature requests after the product implements 0, I get some also information. I get the vision. I know my time boxes. We're going to make so many iterations of so much duration. What's the cost we're going to attribute to each of those cycles? What's the backlog of item I'm going to need to tackle? What's my team? But I don't have my strategic value. I don't have my criteria. They're out of the scope of an agile starting kickoff, if you want, after product implementation 0. I don't have those information. So now I'm going to my portfolio part. I'm having my new demands, my existing development trains, and then I cannot compare because I don't have enough predictability to rank them. So after talking to several people in the agile world, they say, yeah, you get it right. There's something wrong. And besides discussing, debating, and having a beer, we don't have any mechanics because we can't rank those things and compare them to existing. So again, being French, well, Ricardo is Argentinian, but being French myself, usually French people, they just brag and yell and scream and go on strike and stop. And I would say, okay, we discovered a problem. This system is wrong and bad. No, I'm kidding, it's not wrong and bad. It's at the most incomplete. But we wanted to go one step further. And the challenge we have is, how do you create a method, an approach, that manage to give a ranking on items that are not predictable? And in itself, if you think about that sentence, you're like, okay, end of the story, you can't. How are you going to rank things and give a score on items that are able to vary in the matter of features, deliverable, quality along the line? And then we start to scratch our head. And what we're proposing you now is the fruit and the result of that head scratching. And it's not a complete, final, finished, ready to be sold approach, methodology, tool, you name it. Ricardo was daring enough to propose the PMI during the PMI 50-year anniversary in Philadelphia a month ago to present this, and we presented this approach in front of 200 people, and we want to make sure everybody understands this is, now we're entering the world of the academic suggestion about what can we do about this problem of I can't rank, especially if I've got mixed item in my portfolio candidates, Waterfall and Agile, how I'm going to be able to score them and make a ranking. So what you're going to see now is the fruit of our conception of this. You can agree, not agree, and open for debate. And I'll tell you at the end of this presentation what happened at the PMI at the end. It was so interesting. Let's jump to it. We called this the product value based. I cannot value my project in Waterfall, again, because it's not a predictive model. So what are we going to try to do is to value the product in a large meaning, in a wide meaning, that are concerned by those projects. That's the catch. We're not going to rank the projects themselves. You're going to first try to rank the products they are targeting. So the PVB approach deals with the strategic interest of an organization, not in the projects it's got to launch, but in the product it's got to create, improve, or etc. For instance, is Airbus more interested in investing any project dealing with its 320, 340, 350 class of liner. They're different planes. Some of them are brand new. Some of them are the workhorse. Some of them are getting old, the 340. Would they be ready to invest the same amount of money project into those? There must be some interest, intrinsic interest of those products within the company. Let's take another example. Apple, everybody knows Apple, back in 2001. Was at the time Apple more interested in developing iPod Nano, iPod Shuffle, iPhone, anything new? Because then you don't really need to rank, first you don't need to rank each project. You first try to assess how attractive is the product targeted by the project. So regardless of the projects, the idea is to assess what product has value for the organization and what's the relative value of each product. What would be a strategic score for those planes within the Airbus company? What would be the strategic score in the Apple company regarding their strategic development? So that's the first part, is evaluating the products within the range of products those candidate projects are targeting. The second one is, well, we don't have a project charter for agile projects. It's part of the deal. We don't have them. But we get something. We get the user story. But the user story is just an expression with one sentence. This agile project will answer to this group of user story. But though you cannot give an ROI percentage on the user story, that user story is going to make us score 6 more points of ROI per year or make a market penetration of 26%. You can't do that. But what you can do is ask the company again, now that you rank your products preference, would you rank your epic scenario, your user story preference? And though it's a little bit obscure at the time, let's have a concrete look at what it gives in two examples. So we're gonna work in two passages. We're gonna work in two ways, two sequences. The first sequence is to rank for a company, each product within the company. The second one will be to rank for the same company against all products, the attractivity of the user story. Against all product, that's very important. So we're going to make very clear example. Don't worry if it's a bit obscure at the moment, but just let's reminder, we're going to make two things. First, rank the attractivity of a product for a company. And second, the attractivity of a user story against these products. Okay, let's jump right into it. Apple company, disclaimer, don't sue us. We're using Apple for academic example. That's Apple's roadmap of products and softwares and things like that. And what we're going to concentrate on is, let's set us back to 2001. In 2001, 2002, we had some items, some devices. We're staying on the device. And Apple's roadmap was showing that later, some new device named the iPhone was going to come up in 2008 and things like that. So let's get back to time, and for a sample, and this is just for academic purpose, I'm going to answer already. No, Apple didn't see that, and no, that's not how Apple decided to push forward the iPhone. Thank God. It's retrospectively, we're trying to feed our model and see if it works. So we're going to sample 5 products. Remember, first wave is rank the products within the organization. And organization, we're going to talk to software development people. We're going to talk to market and sales people. We're going to talk to support people. Just the 3 sample at the moment. We're going to make it a bit more complete with Airbus. Just for the example, just for you to get the hang of what that methodology could give. Now, iPod Shuffle was dying already at the time, and iPhone was going to be the star because they understood they had the apps market and the apps marketplace where they're going to make money out of it. The iPod Touch was working good. iPod Nano was still on, etc. And if you ask market sales, would you guys favor this product as part of your marketing mix, the iPod Shuffle? They probably answer no, it's a dying technology, our competitors are on it now, we need to move on the range. Okay, so you're not very interested, market sales, into that product. Correct. Are you interested in the iPhone that's coming? Oh, we're thrilled. That's the future, blah, 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 blah. And they were right. So you can ask, and you can use panel, group deciding system and methodology, workshops, you name it. You can have those scores from those people by several iteration, by there are techniques now to have people work together in a group and spit out those percentage. You can tell me they are artificial. Yes, they are. But it's okay. It reflects a tendency that iPhone was more attractive in 2001 for Apple than iPod Shuffle. Fair enough. Therefore, and of course, each percentage sum must be 100%. Therefore, if you take the hypothesis that each of the silos have the same weight, but you can say Apple is a marketing sales organization. This should score twice as much as the other. We didn't put any weight, but if you wanted, you could. But then you have your product attractivity score within the company, and the company is attracted. Yeah. The company's product highest attractivity will be the iPhone. Is the iPhone, of course, and it's logical that iPod scores less, much less. Meaning that meaning that any new development concerning the iPhone will be favored as a matter of investment than any user story or project dealing with the iPod Shuffle. We have a first organization that we should favor developments and product and investment dealing with the highest ranking products, because a company cannot live on one product only, of course. So let's move on a bit. User story now. Let's go back to this. This is the product attractivity for the company. Now we're going to rank user stories against that product attractivity ranking. What's a user story structure? As a type of user, I want some goals, so that's some reason. Okay, so we have a user here who's expressing its need, and we're going to do, bottom left corner, we have a new feature request, and the feature request is going to appear by that user story. We're going to do a bit of product implementation 0 to know where we're going to land. We're going to have a vision, time box, cost, backlog, teams, etc. This is the user story we're proposing you for this example. As a user story, back in 2001 or 2005, I can back up my video clips on a hard disk. And with iPhone and Apple range of products, it's pretty hard to get backup of videos or clips. You can't move files around in Apple. You need iTunes, and it's a bit complicated. But that's the user story. Interestingly enough, that user story only concerns 2 products on their range. There's no video capacity in iPod Shuffle. There's no screen. There was no video capacity in the iPod Nano. Apple TV, you don't record and save. It's not a device. So at the end of the day, this user story will be valid for 2 products. And think about it this way. If I got one single user story I'm going to invest on, and it's dealing with 2, 3, 4 products, it's always better than just dealing with one product. For one investment fee, I'm going to hit several products and gain benefits on several products. The automotive industry understood this very well. Today, they're not manufacturing cars. They're manufacturing platforms, common chassis, common brakes, common window button, common steering wheel. Why? Because once you develop once and you address it to so many cars, it's cheaper than developing it once for each car. So it's about the same. iOS from Apple works with iPhone, whatever generation, and used to work with iPod at the time. So for one development cost, you address several platforms. So we got that user story that's concerning 2 products only. And those products have got their own score. We saw earlier that software development scored 35% of interest on the iPod Touch and 50% interest on the iPhone. We saw that market and sales were thrilled by the iPhone. But let's ask them now to rank this user story. Again, this is fictional, but support has a very high interest in that user story. They scored 4 out of 5 on the user story. Why the heck is support interested in people backing up their video clips on a hard disk? Well, because they will stop calling support for doing this. because they've got 20,000 calls a year on how do I back up my video that I just saved? I want to do it on a hard disk right away with a USB key. No, you can't. It's blah, blah, blah. They're going to save time. So they're like, well, if you create that development for us, people will stop calling. So that's how you would ask those company entity to rank not only the products we just did, but each user story. Market sales, like, oh, I'm not going to sell more iPod and iPhone by promising my clients that I can back up their video clips on a hard disk. This is not a determinant and a competitive advantage. Software development doesn't care much. They know it's going to be cheap to make or whatever. So I'm now going to multiply the product interest score by the user story interest score for each of those silos in the company, simply just doing math. And when I multiply and do the average of the user story times the product interest for each product, I end up having my product-based value score. And what I see there is that there's more interest, the score of that user story on this iPhone for the company 3.8, the score of that user story on this product is 2.35 for the company, and therefore I will add those score because I just said, if I'm paying one time a development that I can address on two platforms, I'm adding up the scores to a total product-based value score of 6.15. And we would have to do it again for each user story because each user story represents a feature request from the Agile world. So it's like asking for a new product or a new project. Sorry, not a new product, excuse me, a new project. Therefore, we can add that value on each and have a final score. And then we need to compare the score. And I found a way of ranking things without having to go into detail about the features final of that user story. What's the extension of those video clips? Does it will be able to save .mov, .mp4, .wmv? We don't know at the moment. Will it be able to save files that are 1 gigabyte big? I don't know. Will it be able to compress what it saves? We don't know. We don't know the features, but we still can rank the interest of that user story against those products. So that was the easy example. Let's, now that you understand and you get a hang of it, let's get one deep, another one with Airbus. Airbus airplane, and I singled out because it keeps on changing. Airbus, I singled out 5 airplanes, 5 products. The 320 is the commuter. A 320 typically in Europe lands and take off 6 to 10 times a day and is doing just short commuting within a single country, up and downs, or going all over Europe. So the 320 is a short, small commuter. The 330 is old now. It's one of the first one they developed, and it's not really sold anymore. 340 as well was their first long ranger, but it's getting old. The 350 is the brand new one. It just Air France received last month their first one. So this is full of technology, wide body, etc. And the 380, which is the double decker, has been stopped. They're going to stop production. They announced it about 6 months ago. They're not going to sell anymore. So this is a beautiful but dying product. That's an interesting landscape for product value-based approach, because you can see some of those planes don't have the same life cycle or usage as others. So here we go again, but this time, oops, sorry. I corrected the slides. I singled out 5 silos. Marketing, I separated from sales. Support, training is an unexpected big department at Airbus because they sell training all over the world with simulators, with etc. And there's one R&D. Excuse me for the layout. R&D should be here on the right. There's something wrong with my animation sequence. But we're going to ask the same as we did with Apple. Please, marketing, rank out of 100 points, dispatch 100 points into those planes. And the result would be this. Like, marketing is spending 0 points on the A340. This is dying. This is so old. I'm not going to be able to sell anymore. On the other hand, excuse me, I was drinking. On the other hand, the 350, sorry, is extremely interesting for marketing and sales. That's where the sales are going to be made in the next years. And the old 320, because that first plane at the top there is still where the cash and money and benefits of Airbus is being made. So marketing and sales, not very interested into the 320, 330, 340. Sales is not interested at all in 380. They're not going to sell anymore. They abandoned it. Right? So, and again, I lost my R&D. This R&D is interested still in 320 because whatever is new on that plane is going to make its lifespan go further. Very interesting in anything new coming from the 350 because it's breakthrough technology. But R&D is not going to develop anything anymore for those 25, 30-year-old conception planes. So at the end of the day, you can also devise a product score within the Airbus company. And of course, the 350 will score higher. It's brand new, and all the interest of the company is focused on this. And on the 320, which is the milking cow of Airbus, the rest is at the moment not very interesting and not exciting for the company. And again, this is fictitious. Airbus never put those figures. Airbus don't know. I use an example out of this. This is common sense reasoning, scoring, but this is what you can do with your clients or within your company. So that was the product scoring. Let's have a look at the user story now. I'm proposing here 2 candidates user stories, not one, like we did earlier with the Apple backup of video. I'm proposing 2 we're going to make compete and see which one is the most interesting. And these are drawn from real facts. I and Ricardo worked at Airbus and Safran Landing System for some time, and we got those stories from there. Airbus is, and there's no, it's not under, it's in public press. You can Google it; it'll be there. So Safran Landing System, manufacturing a landing gear, is thinking about a very smart system. The system is, during a classical, when you take a plane, classically a pusher will push your plane back, and then the jet's engine will start, and the jet engine will be used to taxi to your takeoff. Then you take off, then you land, and when you land, the jets are going all again to drive you and taxi you all the way back to your gate. And they're thinking that globally, you got 23 minutes of useless jet engine using fuel, polluting and making noise that you're not even using for flying, just for rolling on the tarmac. And what they're thinking is putting electric engines, electric motors into the wheels, that the little electric engine will turn the wheels around, and all that green part on the right-hand side will be all that save time. That is no more pusher, you just reverse like with a car, and then you put forward, just like in a car. You don't start your jets, you're just using on your electric engine all the way to your takeoff strip, sorry, and just 3 minutes before, just to heat up the oil and everything, you would put them on. And same with final approach. When you touch down, you switch. So they're gonna save a lot of money, gonna save a lot of pollution, etc., and kerosene on planes that take off and land very often. The drawback, it weighs some weight. And in aeronautics, weight is the enemy. You're gonna put more weight in your wheels, and you're not gonna spare anything in reverse as an exchange. You're just gonna add to the plane. So that's the first idea they have, and it's a 3 billion euro investment. What a user story. Second possible investment for another 3 billion euro is to have an electric brake system. You normally on planes nowadays, the brakes are hydraulic. It's some liquid that you push under pressure with hose and etc., and that push on the pistons of the brake, and that's heavy. And Safran Landing System invented electric brakes that you don't need that hosing and the fluid, everything. You save a lot of weight. But it's also a 3 billion euro investment. What shall I go with? Because I can't pay both of them. Well, let's try to put it in the portfolio-based value approach. So here we're back. So we're going to have each function silo interest for the user story. We already know the user story score per product. We did that just earlier. We're going to multiply it by 2 and find our score. So EGTS, the electric green taxing system, the electric engines, so that you don't have to use your engine, is in green, and the electric brakes is in red. Let's take a case and look at the A320 family. The 320 family is a plane that takes off and lands several times a day. So several times a day, it will be able to save kerosene, fuel, noise, several times a day, those 14 minutes of saving. So it's extremely interesting for the A320 to be equipped with that EGTS system. The A320 at the bottom is a long range plane that only takes off and lands once every 2 days. So we're going to carry so much weight over the Atlantic and the Pacific or whatever for one usage every 20 hours. That's not worth it. If we carry on, sales and marketing, very excited about eGTS for the 320, not excited at all with the eGTS for the 320. And then you can make reasoning about those scores according to the situation. On dying planes, well, you're not gonna retrofit those dying planes anyways. What you want to push forward is the new planes. But look at eGTS for a new plane, 0-0. The 350 is a long range. eGTS doesn't like long range because you're not going to use it and you're going to carry that bloody weight in your wheels. So again, by panel analysis and scoring and blah, blah, you can determine each user story's score. And mind you, here in this case, the user story applied to every plane. It's not like the Apple where it was technically not fit to have video on an iPhone Nano. And when you multiply that score by the original product interest in the company, you can see those 44 and 34 we saw earlier, you finally get a score of eGTS for each plane and EBS for each plane. And by doing a little bit of math, at the end of the day, yeah, normally I hide this so you understand better. I went too fast. At the end of the day, you finally get your score by using your averages. And the score, even though eGTS sounds so cool to be able to use electric engine into the plane, so you don't have to use your jet engine to taxi around, it seems the most efficient score lays around EBS for this range of product for this user story. So if I got a third user story of an investment of so many billion, I would again use my original product interest here in that column, and I would rescore that user story for each department. For each plane, would do my average and end up with a score. Now, those scores are, of course, relative. There is no absolute scoring, like I want to reach 10. And this is just a way of having scores, not based on predictability, because I don't know the performance of my EBS brake. Will they break better? Will they break slower? What's the weight I'm going to save with the GTS? All this in discovery iterative mode, I don't know. I can't reply you at the beginning. After the sixth iteration, probably we're going to tell you how much weight it is. Waterfall project wouldn't have that problem. Waterfall project is we're going to make an EGTS system that weighs 40 kilos per wheel, and that is going to blah, 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 blah. And your variable then is that you cannot vary. In the middle of the project, somebody knocks on your shoulder saying, oh, you need to save 10 more kilos. Like, okay, we got to start the project again because I don't have the flexibility in a waterfall, as its name says, to change the specs along the way. And I do have that flexibility in Agile. But as a trade-off, I cannot tell you upfront what you're going to get. And that's the whole problem. So I'm in time, and I'm going to be able to address questions if you have. What's the findings of all this at the end of the day? Because we saw two phases in this presentation: the discovery of what we think is a problem, a first approach to resolution with the Apple explanation, and a second one a bit more sophisticated with Airbus mixing several user stories. What we see on the field is that on the delivery level, people think Agile more and more as they need to. And again, I worked enough on the construction industry to know that you're not building a hotel casino in an iterative mode. You're building it waterfall straight down because you built 6 before and you pretty much know what you're going to do. But for anything with R&D, with something unknown that you need a discovery, well, Agile is perfect for that. But top management company, at the top management, it's not there yet. And I've been addressing so many times today this bullet point about predictability, right? Waterfall is predictable but rigid. Agile is flexible but is discovery. And Agile, by its nature, cannot guarantee product scope and feature to be predictable. Otherwise, it's not Agile anymore, and there's no need to be Agile. Agile is about the capacity to change along the way, and the more you know, the more you can adapt and make the better product possible. Therefore, the portfolio, the decision of investment on those items must be based on criteria that are not linked with the scope and feature because we can't decide it. And we're proposing with the product value-based approach that products get an intersect interest in the company. And user stories have got their impact on those products. And I showed you a method of calculation so that we could get a product-based value. And when we shot this at the PMI in front of 200 people, everybody took his smartphone and starting to take picture of this. I had to go back. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't take picture of this. It's just basic. It's the PVB of a product. It's the attractivity of the product multiplied by the user story attractivity. That's the PBV of a product. And the total PBV of a portfolio is the sum of the PVB of the product. Voila. This is in a nutshell. And again, this is academic work. Now, a little story about, and then I take question. We presented this in front of 200 people, a bit scared actually because, you know, we're daring. This is risky what we're doing because we're proposing something that doesn't exist. First, we're saying there's a problem with SAFe. We could be nailed down by SAFe specialists. Then we say maybe we have a way of working around it so we can still work with scoring and attractivity scores. And we're really not proud of ourselves when we enter the room. 200 people in there. And at the end of the session, which was bad timing, of course, because it was 11:30 to 12:30, and it was cantina and meal time. Everybody fled the room usually on those. And after that, like half of the room, 100 people, stayed for another 45 minutes just debating. And some people stood up saying, "Well, you got it wrong because in my company, of course, we don't do select like this." Like, yeah, okay. We're just trying to propose something. We're not saying we got it right. And then surprisingly, some people stood up saying, "Sir," not talking to us, but to the guy who just put those questions, "Sir, you don't get it. Those guys are in trial and error. And actually, I got a client. I'd like to bring this next week with me on board to present him." And I'm like, "Sure, this is at the moment, there's no methodology, work package. I can't sell you a mission. This is just a proposal from an academic point of view saying, something we didn't like when we presented a SAFe model. We think there's an issue and we try to prove there's an issue because we don't have any way of doing this prioritization. On field, they're crying for help because mixed mode, some projects are in Waterfall, some projects are in Agile. I need to make investment decision. And we try to devise a way of ranking things and scoring things, though you can't predict their final features and value. Voila. If anybody is interested enough to take this on board and do more research with us, the next step, and we're talking with universities at the moment, is to bring this on board to a physical client and try to reproduce this model on an existing actual story. Maybe not with Apple and Airbus because they're pretty big, but with a client or a company who have had to make decision at one point in time and reproduce that step of decision with the product value base and see, would the product value based approach have given the same result and is it a valid model? Voilà. Arim, maybe you have question, maybe you have people who have been interacting, anything? Can you?
Hi, Olivier. Yes, there are coming in so far. We have two questions. The first one is, how does this work for IT in a non-industrial context?
Well, you can think about IT as the Apple example. The IT will be the development team at IT will have to develop a piece of software that does that backup with the protocols and etc. So again, let's have a look at the big picture. So I'm going to go very fast upstairs. When you say the IT, well, this is my IT department, and I've got at the bottom, I've got IT teams delivering with their product owner and that their team, their Scrum Master, what we are trained today in Agile delivery. That's the bottom part. But your IT department as a whole is going to have to make a decision about what do I invest in this year. I can't do everything I've been asked. So why I'm going to invest in option A rather than option B. So actually, when we devised this and presented to PMI, some people made us notice, well, this is good for portfolio, but this is good for anything. Anything you cannot predict value on, you pretty much get a system for ranking it by attractivity inside the company, not by the intrinsic attractivity of what you're going to try to develop. You can't measure that up front. So IT is no different than anything as a matter of development. In IT, you may have 20 backlogs for 20 features, and you can only pay for 10. Which one are you going to put forward and why? It's always the same question, the portfolio question. I got so many items I could do. I got that much budget that doesn't correspond. I got less, of course. What shall I select for this year? And what do I make my selection based on? And that's what we're trying to answer here is you cannot make your selection on the promise of value that's going to come from those 10 backlog for 10 requests or 20 requests in your IT world. You don't know what they're going to deliver. You will only know after so many iterations, but you need to make a decision now. So we need to find other ways. And again, we can ask within an IT organization, you always get architects, you get developers, you get support and maintenance, and those guys have something to say about that that video backup. Maybe the architects don't want it because they say the only backup possible is on the cloud on our own server. Can you imagine the size of the server? We as architects don't like that idea. Whereas your support team is like, we love this idea because this way the phone will not ring as often of people not being able to save. So you can again rank in your IT world, not the piece of code, but the reason why the piece of code is there, which is the user story. That's how I see it for IT, at least.
Okay, so the last question here is, how do you do a hybrid portfolio where you have to prioritize where there are waterfall projects as well?
Well, the waterfall projects is easier to rank under a project-based value. We only focus on the agile one here, but on the waterfall projects, you pretty much know everything after your project starter, or at least you can commit to your bet. There it is here. You can commit to your organization saying, we spend 2 weeks of work with suppliers, blah, blah, and we know what's the strategic value you're going to give. So if your product value based on the user story is just asking the verticals, do you like or not this user story within the time you world and etc., it's even more direct here because I got all my metrics and I can have a direct PBV for the company saying, hey, Mr. Marketing, how would you like a 26% more penetration on the market on this range of product? It's not how would you like to have a system that can back up video. Is I can make a system that will back up your videos in 26.2 seconds with compression on a zip and RAR format, and that will do. And your scoring is so easy. What's not easy is to change it. That Agile allows changing of features or scope along the way. That no, you can't. Once you decide this for your, if my example at the Apple level was a waterfall, would be the specs are we're going to create an interface that weighs that many bytes. We're gonna do it in so many weeks, and that's gonna cost so much. And that's the feature and the type of format of video it will save and not save. And it's so precise. Your product value-based score is immediate. The temptation would be it is so precise I can go back to my good old criteria approach and ROI and penetration, but no, because you're going to mix it with items that don't have it. So you need to So you need to take the most common denominator, and the common denominator is not precision on those criteria. The common denominator is this user story, or in the case of a waterfall project, is this charter of interest for my verticals. And that's how you would actually degrade, if you want a little bit, the waterfall approach, which is so precise and so wrong at the same time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not naive. That you're never going to get what you want at the beginning. That's the life of projects. But at least you get markers that are determined that you don't have in the agile mode. But you need to make this go back to the PVB approach so that you have a single system of evaluation of anything, whether it's agile based or waterfall based. So yeah, for hybrid and mixed mode, you need to forget about this approach here, that having your criteria scored, and usually you know how it is made. It's approximative anyways. When you ask people what's the market penetration, there's no steady formula that's going to reply you between 20 and 25%, so it's going to score high. That's how we work. But you can bring that easily to a product value base, saying this is very attractive to marketing, very not attractive to whoever else according to those criteria. So that's how I would modelize a hybrid mode, is to treat waterfall project as this PVB method, which was originally designed for agile project, but there's no reason they won't work for it. There's no reason they should block anything there. Yeah, several challenges there. One challenge is, okay, how do you rank something that you can't predict? The second one is, well, it's not the only nature of things I need to rank, because I got predictable things to be ranked along on the same sack of potato or bubble, if you want, than discovery model. And I can't use classical ways of, because classical portfolio management comes with its theory of portfolio. SAFe comes with another one, but the world is neither nor. The world is a hybrid mix of everything. Is there any universal way of approaching valuation so I can rank, prioritize, and make decision with those different items. And nobody's safe from in 10 years' time, there'll be a third way of managing projects for other type of initiative than Waterfall or Agile. There might be a third one, and we still need to find a way of globally assess items in there and make decisions.
Okay, thank you,
Voilà.
Olivier. I think we arrived at the end of our webinar. Oh, there's just one more. You have time for one more?
Sure.
Speaking about benefits, is there a different approach in a hybrid PPM for dealing with the benefit reviews?
Indeed. Let me get to that slide there. Haha. Benefits. That's the one at the end here. That's at the end of the day, that's where you're going to try to reach. That's why you do projects. Whether in Agile or in Waterfall, you know, the Romans and the Greeks, they were making projects 3,000 years ago without asking themselves, oh, is it Agile or is it Waterfall or is there a different approach to measuring? No, the idea of benefits and funny enough, the PMI organization is really now digging into this. 30 years ago, most literature, documents, training, system, software were dealing with project management. And 10, 15 years ago, a bit more 20 years ago, the portfolio management theory came up. And 5, 10 years ago, when I was dealing with demand management, I'm doing a lot of mission around demand management. How do I rank my ID management? So you see there are those disciplines of project management are taking their time. And benefits one, very interestingly, is the latest and more trendy one at the moment, because your benefits you don't necessarily get them once your project's finished. You may have to wait so many years, and then nobody cares anymore because the team been replaced 6 times, the company changed 3 times its name, and nobody even knew why we did that project for what benefits. So benefits management is currently a big thing at the PMI. And as much as I think, because I'm not a specialist in Agile, don't get me wrong, that there is a framework about how to organize your benefits capture management, identification, realization in Agile. The one at the Waterfall model, surprisingly, it's an older model, but they are catching up behind, and there's no unified theory of benefits capture against. That might be the next subject that Ricardo and I are going to work with. Do you assess the benefits of an agile outcome as the same matter you do as a classical project? And I think yes, so because once you delivered, this is what you get. But of course, the expression of benefits in a waterfall is much more precise than the expression of a benefits in Agile. My user story, which was I'm on my hard disk, what's the benefit of this? It is not really explained. And after my product implementation 0, benefit is not tackled there either. The vision might bring the benefit with it, but it's not clear. But mind you, when you look at the Waterfall Classical, the benefit's not there either. We know in project charters nowadays that there's the business case, and if the benefits is a financial one, you would see it appear there. But benefit management is a new discipline on its own that's not really spread out at the moment. But I wouldn't make much difference because the project have been conducted, so the benefit is to be realized. Where I would make a difference is how do I envision and model my benefits, expected benefits at the beginning when the project is just a concept. And for Waterfall, we know how to do this. For Agile, I'm not sure, but we need to talk with Agile specialists on there. But again, bear in mind my presentation was dealing with the portfolio part, the portfolio, the selection process, not the benefit realization process, though it's a very good question.